Now we're cooking with grease. Now we're cooking with grease. Alrighty. Wicked bustled through, and Lucia hovered at the threshold. It was even more storybook on the inside. I don't care. It was even more storybook on the inside. Sunny yellow walls and sunny hardwood floors. Pristine, fluffy white bedspread heaped with extra pillows and blankets. Gauzy linen drapes softly billowing in front of white paned windows. Far warmer and more inviting than her room in Oregon. Her work pants, boots, and bedraggled backpack felt like they sullied it. Muddy footprints tracked into a palace. She actually glanced at the floor to check, then quickly stepped into the room. Wicket was pulling towels out of the closet and setting them on the bed. She packed light. The island provided most of what she needed, and she shipped her tools directly there. Her backpack was her life. Scruffed old tech nylon, four strapped four strap repairs in 17 years, housing three outfits, a toothbrush, her mom's hairbrush, and a tiny octopus named Ollie, which made her which was made of black satin and slithered in your hand. Yeah, yeah. And slithered into your hand. Mm. He was buckled in one of the pockets for safety. She set her backpack carefully on the floor next to the bed, trying not to touch anything with it, and debated rapidly whether she should take off her shoes. Wicked had bare feet and comfortable clothes, but he lived here. Maybe she did too, for a while at least. She kept her shoes on. Next to the bed, and a spindly wooden table, sat a delicate white teacup, still steaming, and an empanada that had to be fresh by the mouth-watering look of the fried crust and savory smell. Did you? She worked to get the right tone. Amazed, grateful, a flood of feelings suffused her. Did you make this just for me? It sounded small, but she couldn't help it. Me? Oh, heck no. Wicket waved that off as he scurried to adjust the windows, cutting down the breeze. Anything cozy is Jex. For those of you who don't know, Jex is the mean guy who was, berating her at the door before she could get to the house. He has a channel, the Easy Pleaser. Over 1 million watchers now. He's got a real gift for it. I just code AI for the corporate overlords and try not to burn the pancakes. Lucia's grin was slow in coming, but she felt it through her whole body. Wicket turned down the covers of the bed and fluffed the pillows in an awkward way, like he wasn't sure what he was doing. Bathrooms down the hall, he said, giving up on that. Afraid you have to share with everyone on the floor, but there's a schedule for that. He swiped the air quickly and a message popped up on her display with an invite, a shower calendar. She could work with that. If there's anything you need, just message me. He was already at the door. Cozy time is just after sunset or whenever Amal is done with prayers. He waved the air again, brushing that away. You'll meet her and everyone then. Settle in. And he was gone. She let her gaze soak in the room one more time, then wandered over the window. The ocean breeze carried even though they were a mile from the coast. The city haze had been swept away. leaving the sky clean and blue. She closed her eyes briefly, breathing it in. Flashes of memory lit up her mind. Her childhood bedroom window, where the ocean breeze was always knocking. The sun's warmth on her face when she opened it to a brand new day. Even the background smell of the empanada spiced her memories of home. Ooh, I like that. I like that sentence. Spiced her memory of home. She opened her eyes to the normal glint of the city. It wasn't her childhood island home, but it was dangerously close. That surged up too much hope, the fragile kind that could easily shatter. And she'd taken a lot of hits lately. She pulled in another lungful of salty air, then turned from the window and swiped through the sign up sheet for a shower slot. Unpacking took 2 minutes, including peeling off her gloves and stowing her biohaz goggles, but before she could gather her things to wash up, a message came through, hovering in her peripheral vision, demanding attention. She gave in and flicked it open. It was Tito, her cousin. Are you settled with the new familia? She summoned a virtual keyboard and typed back, yes. And they made me empanadas. Wepa. Wait, is this some trick? Maybe they are a front for some LA gang that's luring in pretty Boricua girls with delicious treats. Definitely. Probably have to kill someone after cozy time. She repacked her backpack with shower things. What is that? A code word? What are these Californians getting you into? She grabbed the empanada and blinked a picture, sending it off to Tito. Then she took a bite. It tasted even better than it looked. Tito's response flashed back. Whoa, that is one beautiful empanada. I will gladly kill for food this good. She took another bite, too soon, greedy, for it in a way that felt risky. She needed to rein all this back in. See, there are good people. Have it have to go, Tito. Don't come rescue me. You need to come rescue me. Abuela is making 1,000,000 pasteles tonight, and you know she won't let us rest until they're done. I will probably die tonight. Light a candle for me. But then his message faded. In Puerto Rico, it seemed like every family was big and loud. Tios, tias, primos. She had been adopted into so many familias. It seemed like she was related to everyone left on the state in the state. It's okay, mama. You're okay, mama. You're okay, baby. Oh, I didn't know you were up, baby. Mm. Oh, you want me to move? Where I left off. All right. And there was always someone checking up on her. She had to fight to keep them out of her business. It was bustling and loving and wonderful. And she left it all behind to chase after a dream. Just like her parents, she'd come to the mainland for school. They'd met at Stanford, but that was back before the Power Engineering Institute became the premier place for engineers to receive their training. So Lucia applied to the one in LA. Being legacy of Energy Island engineers helped her get in. Her parents had married after graduation. Oh, that's one too many scrolls down. That's one too many scrolls up. Chill the fuck out. All right, there we go. Her parents had married after graduation and had started their family right away. That was the first hit for her. Dating at the Institute was a few frantic affairs, but nothing solid, nothing to build a family on. Her parents had moved to Power Island 1 when she was 3, and her first memories were there. Those days were as bright and gauzy as the yellow linen drapes billowing gently in her room. But when she graduated and went to Oregon, the second hit came. None of it was the same. Maybe the islands were never that way in reality. She couldn't honestly be sure. Maybe her memories were a story she told herself after the plague took them, her parents first, and then her brothers. That ancient virus made the world truly desperate. The waves kept coming after that. Her family had been wiped away in a blink, like so many others. Her familia in Puerto Rico cared for her, but those memories of her parents and brothers, her first family, were her bedrock. They were the cliffs she stood on, holding out against the rising sea, stronger than all of nature's fury. Only it turned out the bluff was made of sandstone, appearing solid, but slowly eroding with each crashing wave. Shit does not do what it needs to do. There we go. That's why. There we go. All right, yeah. Mm-mm. They were the cliffs she stood on, holding out against the rising sea, stronger than all of nature's fury. Only it turned out that the bluff was made of sandstone, appearing solid but slowly eroding with each crashing wave, threatening to slip into the sea. Reality was pandemics and creepy coworkers and long lonely shifts, and a mainland home that had been no such thing in the end. She was here at Jackson Wickets, trying again because she still clung to the dream. Was that foolish or the only thing that mattered? She eased off her boots, sat on the edge of the bed, and finished the empanada while nursing the tea. By the time it was gone, the fatigue of just getting into the house, the pull of the plush pillows and cool sheets were more than she could resist. Shower could wait. Besides, a nap would power her up again for cozy time, whatever that may be. This could be a home, a real one, if she could hold on to it. She simply had to not mess it up and hope that the fairy tale wasn't too good to be true. I'm tired of this. She bumped her shower out a couple of hours, then drifted off, thinking how she didn't have much time to earn her place on this tiny island of softness. Just a day. Out of dead sleep, an alert roused her, beeping in her ear and saying she was late for cozy time. The streetlights had come on, coloring the room orange. She'd missed the shower slot altogether. She asked the lights to turn on, then scrambled to get her stuff, nearly slipping in her stocking feet as she hustled into the hall. The tiny bathroom was empty, so she twisted her hair up into a knot and jumped in the shower. The controls were manual, and it took her a minute to figure them out. The residual antiviral washed off her skin easily. She decided to wash her hair, just in case Wicked might notice. The lights flickered just once, which made her freeze mid rinse. Outages were tightly scheduled. Had she slept through an alert? Maybe the flicker was just water in her eyes. But if Jex and Wicked had a bad breaker, she might have a chance to be useful right away. She was a power engineer, not an electrician, but she could be handy around the house, prove her worth. She noticed washing her hair and then rinsed off just as she reached for a towel. The lights went out. The bathroom had utter blackness. What the hell? She definitely hadn't missed the 10-minute alert that always preceded an outage. People had to have time to make sure their backups were functioning, especially for critical med equipment and emergency bot services. Even just to finish recharging your chip before a surge came through. There had to be something wrong with the breaker. A terrified wail pierced the dark. Ooh, wah, wah, wee, wah. I think, should I read chapter 2? I don't know. I'll, I'll start on chapter 2. Who's, yeah, I'll just read chapter 2. Fuck it. Fuck it. Who gonna test me? Nobody. Lucia quickly dried off, then searched for her clothes in the dark. The wail went on, but it was broken by gasps for air. And by the time she was dressed, she recognized it as a baby's cry. She felt her way down and out of the bathroom, down the hall. Her base station, with its built-in light, was in her room, next to the empty cup. She inched her way through the blackness, fingertips grazing the wall to keep grounded. Even the streetlights must be out, or they'd have lit up in her room, which raised the hairs on her arms. What the hell was happening? She gingerly felt along the nightstand, but still managed to knock the teacup over before she found her base station. The baby's cry paused just long enough to hear the smash of china against the hardwood floor. Shit. She found the base station and clicked on the light, only then remembering she could have remote accessed it through her chip. But when she tried to bring up a connection, she was offline. The base station was working, which meant she killed the light and peered out the window. Everything was dark, as far as she could see. Were the gateways down too? Online access was a fundamental utility as power. Every gateway should automatically switch to backup power before schedule outage. In the rare event backups failed on one, there were dozens more. There were a dozen more gateways within range. How could everything be down? Footsteps in the hall hurried toward her room, a light bouncing ahead of them. Jex appeared in the doorway. You okay? He demanded, his base station beam blinding her, then dropping to the broken teacup at her feet. I'm so sorry. Lucia crouched to pick it up, but it was shattered. The three main pieces were surrounded by a debris field of tiny slivers. It was an accident. I'll replace it, I promise. She had to raise her voice to be heard over the crying baby. She gathered the large pieces in her hand, but the shards were impossible. She tried anyway. That's all it was? Jex's hand on her elbow tugged her to standing. She obliged, awkwardly cradling the pieces in her base station, heart pounding. His light blinded her again as he scanned her. I thought maybe you'd fallen. I'm fine. What? He couldn't hear over the baby. I'm fine, she shouted just as the crying baby stopped. Her voice echoed and she cringed, but Jex didn't seem fazed. A light outside her window went on, but it wasn't a street lamp. A second floor window in one of the tidy cottages shone light on the street. What's happening? It didn't make any sense. The whole area should have power. I thought maybe you would know. She whipped her gaze back to him, but he was serious. Her heart shrank. She was a power engineer. Of course, she would know what was happening. That, he waved at the lit up cottage, is the Hampton solar backup coming on. Amal should be hooking ours up any moment. She frowned. Aren't your backups automatic? Every building had a mandated solar battery backup system that would kick on during the scheduled outages. Sometimes they failed, so it was always good to check before the outage started, hence the alerts. Windows lit up in two more houses across the street. Let's get downstairs. Jex tipped his head and waved his base light, beckoning her out of the room. Bye, cutes patoots. Wait, wait. Yeah, I can't read without kisses. Thank you. Okay. Now I'm fully hydrated. Thank you, baby. Where did I leave off? Ah, yeah, okay. Jex explained further as they shuffled down the hall to the top of the steps. Lately, we've had to disconnect the backups. When the power goes out, there's no alert. Nothing. Just flickers and a sudden surge. I've got two blown battery packs to prove it. But these outages are something crazy. They drain down everything. Like they're sucking the power right out. If you have backups connected to the grid, it'll empty those in a flash and you'll have nothing left. So we have to keep them disconnected. That's really strange. It was crazy talk, absolute conspiracy theory trash, but she didn't want to say that. Like I was saying, Jex held up his light so it illuminated the stairs. Her mind raced as they carefully made their way down. It was true that the grid tapped customer backups when more power was needed to match the load, but that wasn't commonly known. And if that had happened here, it would have been spread out, so only a trickle would have to be pulled from each building. Definitely not draining a whole neighborhood of batteries at once. But something weird was going on. Power was critical. Outages were scheduled. Universal backups existed precisely so this wouldn't happen. They'd reached the entranceway and crossed the living room, which had two figures, their lights casting a dance of shadows on the walls. Wicked waved away Jax's light and shushed them silently on one figure to his lips while he held a baby. She was no good with baby ages, having not spent much time around them, but the source of the unholy wailing was now a little angel with tear streaked soft brown cheeks. A young woman hovered nearby, probably the mother. She had the same soft brown skin, like a lot of light skinned Latinas in LA with some long ago Mexican ancestor. The baby's dark haired head was solidly slumped on Wicked's shoulder. If he weren't wearing the same black wedding band as Jex, she would have thought maybe Wicked was the father, both in appearance and the sure rhythm he had with the baby, rocking her with his whole body, moving side to side. A surrogate, maybe? Not that it was any of Lucia's business, but she was curious. If nothing else, just to understand how everybody fit. You always have the touch, the mother said. I can take her upstairs. You hold the light, Wicket said, gesturing with his chin as he eased into rocking towards the stairs. The woman gave Lucia an apologetic smile, then led the way. Jex waited until they were halfway up the stairs. That's Maria and her baby, Eva, he said in a hushed tone. Not the way I'd hoped you'd meet. How are you with babies? I was kind of always the baby myself. That got a pinched response. But I'm happy to help out, she quickly added. He nodded approval. That was part of the deal in joining a family. You contributed some of your income, but more importantly, you took care of each other. Not just chores, but everything, in sickness and in health, which mattered a lot when you never knew which plague would roll through the next. Everyone had access to the med centers and treatments, but care was a lot more than that. And babies were a lot of care. Back in Puerto Rico, she really was the baby, still. Birth rates were dramatically down everywhere, especially in places in the thick of climate crisis. Islands like Puerto Rico and hot zone spots around the world's middle, were shrinking in population. Children had become increasingly rare. The planet still had plenty of humans, although fewer every year. She often felt like she was the end of an era, her birth 25 years ago marking the beginning of the end of worries about runaway overpopulation. It couldn't be that strange for someone not to have baby care experience. It would definitely be new to her, for her. A flurry of alerts flashed up on her display. Jex had to have received them too. Good. The backups are online. Lucia flicked away the alerts, one after the other. Mm, hold on. Bro, you cannot ghost me after getting my dog pregnant. We need to talk now. Dang. Who got your dog pregnant? Sorry, YouTube. Some random person. Who got your dog pregnant? Are you talking about like an actual dog? Hmm, that's crazy. Somebody got your dog pregnant. Yikes. Yeah, we was just talking about that shit. We was just talking about that shit in this book. This is low key our future. We can't be having babies like that. Anyways, where did I leave off? Where did I leave off? Oh, yeah. So she's flicking the alerts off one after the other. They were all internal system checks. The type her chip ran after losing connection, which was rare. None of the alerts said anything about the power outage. More houses outside were getting power back, but still no street lamps. Suddenly, the living room lit up. Lucia squinted against the glare, then startled when she noticed another person in the room. In the front corner, near the windows to the porch, a white guy, mid 20s, was perched on an upholstered chair. His legs were folded on the seat, hands on his knees, not making a sound. Sounds creepier than a motherfucker. His ears were blocked with mute plugs, and his eyes were covered with light blocking goggles. Ultra black. She'd seen them before. A standard chip fed overlays to your optic nerve to go virtual. You needed to black out reality, and the goggles and plugs got you there. With CBT and a few upgrades, you could go full immersion. She couldn't tell what mode this guy was in, but he was as still as the dead. That's Joe, Jex explained, clicking off his base station light. He's probably running offline just on his base. Says he doesn't like to be connected when he's playing. Power's too unreliable. He gave her a sideways look that felt like a demand for explanation. Only Lucia had none to give. Before she was forced to confess that, a striking black woman strode through the door at the end of the room. Lucia glimpsed the kitchen just beyond as the door swung shut. I don't know how much we have. The woman threw her hands up in the air as if Lucia and Jex had just interrogated her. She was dressed in a vibrant orange and gold suit with an elaborate head wrap that swirled and tied up her hair. Jex frowned. The battery should be fully charged. The woman gestured to him with one hand. Yes, it should. And yet the indicator is at half, maybe two-thirds capacity. Her accent was strong. Capacity. Capa, cap, what? Capacity was precisely enunciated. Hmm, interesting. With the emphasis at the end. Maybe I could take a look, Lucia offered. Oh, could you? How wonderful. A wide smile blossomed on her face. And you are the new one? Wicked told me you'd come today. Welcome. She spread her arms wide and gathered up Lucia in a hug. She was so startled, she kind of froze. It was short, and before she could react, the woman had pulled back and pressed her hands together, bowing for a more normal greeting. Lucia hastened to return it. This is Amal Saeed, Jax said, although he was stiff about it. I'm sure I can take a look at the battery, Amal. We don't have to bother our guest about it. Guest? That stung. Like she was still out on the porch in Jex's mind. Of course, you're right, but Amal didn't seem too convinced. We shouldn't make her work right away. Her smile was still abundantly warm. Amal is from Senegal. He means I am a refugee. Go ahead and say it, Jex. I didn't think. Ugh. She dismissed him with a wave and leaned a bit towards Lucia. He is a little timid for a man who runs an entire household. Timid? Jex's affront was almost comical. Amal's pitying look made it worse. Oh, come on now. Admit it. You're soft hearted. You think with kindness. It is a good thing. You know what I mean? Oh, that was a declaration, not a question. Misread. Then she waved the air as if she brushed it all away. Jex looked like she'd just broadcast his half naked baby pictures, bragged about how adorable he was to the world, and now he was paralyzed by horror and too stunned to object. Lucia kept her lips buttoned. I have been here 5 years now, Amal breezed on, as if Jex weren't dying right next to her. In Senegal, I was a teacher, but my town dried up. Then I got a ticket in the refugee raffle. So it's so it was then or never. I came straight to LA, and Jex and Wicked brought me in, their first family member. They helped me get on my feet. So what do you do now? Lucia tried to float the conversation while Jex was still recovering from the devastation. I am a retraining expert, Amal said, with a slight bow as if introducing herself as the Queen of Senegal. The climate crisis keeps me very much in demand. And then there is the displacement from automation. But all the AI in the world cannot do what the lowliest refugee can, no matter what trials the world may have held for them. What's that? Lucia asked. She was already on board, and she didn't even know the answer. Use the brain God gave you. Amal spoke with her hands, arms, and elbows. Fingers splayed with emphasis. Explore, create, have courage. You have to try. Don't give up. You need to dig down and find that part that cares. Being able to care is deeply undervalued. There is much work to be done in the world. Sometimes the people I work with, they don't believe me. They think they can't do these things, but my determination is enough to make them change their minds. They really don't stand a chance. Jex said. His face settled back into careful inscrutability. Lucia nodded. I believe it. It's not like that, Amal objected, but it was with a laugh. I simply help match the work and the people. Sometimes mainstream them into the conventional workforce. Sometimes I help them find a way with their basic support. I believe anyone can make their way, and when they do, I feel something special in my heart. We all should be self made, yes? The only question is what self you are making. That's deep. That's bars. Lucia found herself nodding. She couldn't see anyone disagreeing with Amal's plan for their life, whatever it was. She snuck a look at Jex. Excuse me. Who shrugged, like, this is what it is. Amal's gaze quickly swept the room. Wicked has used his magic on little Eva, didn't he? Before he gets back, and we have our cozy time. I need to finish some business. And with that, she turned, found a straight backed chair, pushed up against the wall, and took a seat. Her eyes glazed as if Lucia and Jex had disappeared from the room. She swiped the air, bringing up a keyboard only she could see. Then suddenly started the fluttering of fingers that meant she was typing. Down to business. Lucia was already smitten. Well, Jex glanced at the door. Amal had come through. Just then, a soft pattering of footsteps down the stairs announced Wicket's return. Sans baby, Eva, and her mother. Lights are back, Wicket proclaimed. Jex scowled. We're still on backup, and I don't know for how long. While I go check, can you introduce Lucia to Joe? And he barely waited for a nod from Wicket before hurrying toward the back door. I guess you've met 'em all. Wicket lifted an eyebrow in her direction, but she was absorbed in her display. So he urged Lucia over to the man in the goggles by the front windows, still motionless in his chair. Joe. She'd almost forgotten he was there. Wicked tapped the air and flicked toward him, then looked expectant as they eased closer. Joe winced. Coming, Wicked, he muttered, then took a deep breath and sighed out the words, stories all the way down. Lucia glanced at Wicked, but he just cocked his head to the side, looking impatient. Joe lifted his goggles, squinting at the sudden light. Sorry, must have missed the alerts. His eyes widened, his eyes widened as he saw her. Oh wow. He took a minute to mute plugs. He took out his mute plugs. Wow. Joe, this is Lucia, Wicked said with a look like Joe was being impossible. Remember, I said she would be here? Right, of course. Joe was marveling at her, like he'd never seen a human being before. Okay, stop cataloging her. You'll drive her off before we even have a chance to show her the rest of us. To show her the rest of us are normal. Wicked gritted his teeth dramatically, then explained, Joe is a writer. You'll have to excuse him. Will I? She was more amused than annoyed. Joe lifted his eyebrows as if to say, Will you? And continued checking her out. Wicked sighed. Jex found him at the birdcage and brought him home, but Joe is hopelessly straight. He also lurks around Muscle Beach, but doesn't lift. There's no explaining it. Joe rose from his chair, sudden but with a fluid motion like he was waiting for this moment. There's always an explanation. Then he looked her dead in the eyes. Just depends on which one you'll believe. Lucia couldn't tell if he was being deeply flirtatious or just strange. Seemed rhetorical as he peeked over his shoulder at Amal, still heavily involved in her messaging. Probably the basic support I contributed toward rent. Joe's smile was teasing, but aimed at Wicked, as if Lucia were already in on his joke. Do you use basic then to support your writing? She asked. Everyone got the payments unless you were exempted out. It wasn't a lot, but she'd seen people live off of it when they couldn't find work. So they have universal basic income here. Or if they did unpaid care with children or the elderly. Joe folded his arms across his chest. I'm employed at the birdcage, not a customer, which Wicked conveniently forgot to mention. He tipped his head to her. Not that it pays much, so the true answer to your question is yes, basic supports my writing. Although, mostly it allows me to be here. And how lucky for me. What do you do with your time, Miss Lucia? He was cataloging her again, this time just her face. Miss Ramirez. She could easily picture a Boric, Boricua, oh God, Puerto Riqueña, there it is, Puerto Riqueña heroine showing up in one of his stories soon. I'll be working on Power Island 1, starting the day after tomorrow. Joe's eyebrows lifted. A genuine hero among us? The rest of their banter had just been silly, but that brought a flush to her face. I'm just, I know, right? Wicked enthused. Maybe she could help us with the outage. A flash of uncertainty crossed Joe's face. You mean the. Then he glanced over his shoulder at the street outside, with the still darkened street lamps. Oh. When he turned back, his eyes had narrowed, intense, and focused on her. The floor lamp bulbs reflected off the blue green of his eyes, making them into tiny interrogation lights. Yes, our new power engineer ought to be able to explain the outages. I don't really. She stalled out as Wicket's attention zoomed in on her, too. Amal muttered something to herself, but it was clear she was done and rising up to join them. All eyes were on her. She cleared her throat. How often do they happen? Once or twice a week? Joe's gaze was even more intense. And you don't get any alerts? That was bad enough, but worse. This was obviously unscheduled. She'd checked before setting up her visit, so it wasn't just an alert failure. Ugh. You haven't heard anything about them? Joe pressed. No, but that was a lie. She heard rumors, but she'd always dismissed them. Power was tightly regulated. People depended on it. The multiple redundant systems in place, all the backups, the alerts, all of it was designed to precisely avoid this. How could it be happening regularly without everyone on the islands, not to mention the mainland, being in a complete outrage about it? I haven't heard anything like this. Now, isn't that interesting? Joe lifted his eyebrow to Wicket, but he was looking distressed. Lucia just came down from Oregon, he sputtered in her defense. Why would she know anything about what's going on in SoCal? But that wasn't an excuse. She should know. Maybe it's the wildfires? Amal offered up, now drawn into their circle. They're earlier every year. It's only June, and look, we're where we are. 2 million acres. Oof. I'm gonna take a nap after this. She was offering Lucia a lifeline as well. She shouldn't need one. I can look into it. The promise was out before she thought about what she was saying. Maybe it's an error in the scheduling. That was the only thing that made sense. But how could that even happen? Grid balancing was a dark AI art, but someone was monitoring it. How could they not notice? Or maybe someone did, but they ignored. They ignored it. In any event, this was wrong, and no one should have to tolerate it. Certainly not her new family. If they would even have her now, an error would be a decent story, Joe said, but not like he was impressed. Look, Amal pointed to the street. Power's back. Lucia peered around Joe. The street lamps were on. Finally. Joe slid the blocker goggles off of his forehead and finger combed his longish hair back in place. Then he dipped his head and said quietly to her, just like it never happened. His smirk was irritating, but mostly because it was cryptic. Was he teasing her or softening the implied sting of the words? She frowned. She tracked down whatever this was. Jex strode through the kitchen door. Breaker says the power's on. Backups are charging again. He gave Amal a nod. They were half power, like you said. No idea why. Maybe I could take a look. Yuslia offered again. Only this time, she knew a lot more about what she might be looking for. No. Wicked spread his hands wide. Cozy time first. Then you can use your magic power skills on the backups. Jex seemed perturbed, but Lucia couldn't decide about what or directed at whom. He said nothing, just shook his head and returned to the kitchen. A touch on Lucia's elbow made her turn. Joe swept his hand away, beckoning her to sit in his upholstered chair while he grabbed a stiff backed one himself. Make yourself comfy, he said with a smile that wasn't so smirky. You're about to experience cozy time with Wicked. But it was Jex who reemerged from the kitchen with a tray full of pastries that were tiny works of art, colorful glazed draped fruits filling thin tart cups. As he passed those around, Amal brought another seat in the middle of the room. Once Jax had distributed the treats, he settled on the couch against the wall. All right. Wicked literally clapped his hands. Since Lucia is here and brand new, we're going to start with a new game Jex made for his channel. It's called Where's the Lie? You pull the lie from the deck, and you have to share three truths, and that are three truths that are just close enough that we can't tell the difference. Winner gets to skip chores for a week. Lucia leaned over to Joe. Is he kidding? Joe's smirk returned. Not in the slightest. Okay, games were not what she expected the first night of her probationary time with her new family, especially not potentially embarrassing ones. But she hadn't expected an unplanned power outage or homemade empanadas either. And it turned out the game wasn't half bad. Huh. Jex was a poker faced demon who would obviously win. Amal had done so many outrageous things, the lie was always tame by comparison, and Joe's smiles grew less smirky and more warm as the game wore on. Wicked was in his element, and Maria joined them for a second round. Just as Cozy Time was declared officially over, a young man named Yoram came hurtling in, desperately begging forgiveness. which he did not get from Wicked despite everyone else saying it's fine. Yoram had been at a lab which ran late. He was a student at the same institute in LA where she had gone to school. Lucia barely got to say hello before Jex rushed him off to do chores, the penance that apparently befell those who violated Cozy Time's mandatory attendance. Through all of it, there was a growing ache in her chest. She rubbed at the spot just below her collarbones, but it was deep inside. It caught Joe's frown, so she stopped. There was no explaining it. Everyone was sweet. There was plenty of food. In a short 2 hours, it was as if she'd known Wicked forever. Amal was her new favorite human, and Joe and Maria had adopted her as a third leg of their flirtation triad. It was all perfectly wonderful. Later, when Lucia turned in for the night, streetlights blazing steadily outside, she finally recognized the persistent growing soreness in her chest. Fear. The more perfect the fairy tale, the more harrowing the pain would be when the hit came. And this time, her bedrock would truly crumble into the sea. She could feel it. Her mind might be determined to make it work, and her heart might lift every single smile, but her body remembered. Nothing was permanent. Nothing stayed. Nothing gold can stay, pony boy. Nothing gold can stay. That's real shit. Gotta know it. Gotta know it. Yeah. Yeah, right here is better. Okay. Mm. The same spot in her chest hurt for a year after her family died. So many were lost during that time. Everyone had a hole punched in them, so she didn't feel particularly alone, especially in Puerto Rico, another island battered by the world. Everyone huddled into each other's arms and held tight. Every shop and street corner had someone's Thea looking out for you. Maybe it was a mistake to leave, but she couldn't know that until she tried. And now she needed to give this familia a true shot. And for that, she couldn't build a fortress to keep out the hits. She had to take the risk out there on the ledge. Lucia breathed through her ache, like she did so often as a girl, and tried to invite sleep into her mind. She could give it a day, and then she'd be back on Power Island, and that was where the dream had first begun. Nice. That's it. That's that second chapter. I really like this book. To be totally transparent, I've read this book already. I don't think I finished the series. I just saw that there's a fourth book, and I only finished the first two. So I'm gonna read this every Sunday because it's a solar punk book. But yeah, it was a good time. Thank you. Oh wow, one person joined my live on YouTube. That's dope. That's dopey dope. Anyways, I'm gonna go take a nap. That's exactly what I'm gonna do. So, yes,